What is going on? Welcome to the Only Football Channel. My name is Kyle, and we have been really busy the last 4 to 5 days. Um, I'm going to reveal something in a couple days that will make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I can't reveal it yet. But just know that there is a big change happening that is very good for the podcast, and it's going to be very good for the viewers of this podcast. And I'm very excited to reveal what it is, but we're going to have to hold off on that because it would be a little premature for me to go down that road right now. But instead, what we're going to do, we are going to open up an interesting article that the NFL released. And I say it's interesting because we know that the MVP is a quarterback award. Now, when you talk about Cooper Kupp 2 seasons ago getting the triple crown, most most yards, most touchdowns, most catches, and he still didn't win the MVP. Instead, they gave it to Aaron Rodgers, who had just won the MVP the year before. So, I mean, it is very challenging to get a non QB to win the MVP. But let's say there were what do you call it? I'm trying to think of the word. An anomaly. Thank you. An anomaly. Let's say that there's an anomaly and somehow a non QB were to win the MVP award. Well, this article is predicting each AFC's team non QB MVP. So for every team in the AFC, who would win the MVP besides the quarterback? Okay. And we're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. And this is interesting because like we're giving shine to the players that don't really get a lot, right? And you'll see that I would think with the offense, trending the way it is in the NFL, if a non-quarterback were not to win MVP, I would assume it's a receiver or a running back, right? But right off the bat, the Baltimore Ravens, they selected Kyle Hamilton. Now, Kyle Hamilton was a total steal last year. I remember he was supposed to be drafted in some projections, in most top five. And I remember being at Applebee's and the Ravens were on the clock and they traded up to get Kyle Hamilton. And I think they were at like pick 14. I mean, it was incredible that they were able to get Kyle Hamilton where they got him. But they get Kyle Hamilton, and that is who the Ravens, or that's who they're predicting would win it for the Ravens. I thought long and hard about Roquan Smith, who admittedly is probably the odds-on favorite for this category. However, I'm just fascinated by Hamilton, who was a bit mid-cast in a heavy nickel role last season, but battled admirably and made tangible strides. The belief is that he'll be able to showcase more of his playmaking ability in a more complete safety role this coming season. And don't forget, he's only 22 years old. I might be a year or two ahead of myself here, but I think the 2022 first round pick is capable of a 5-sack, 5-interception type season. Facing strong QB competition in the AFC North, along with a few tough late season games, the Ravens are going to need Pro Bowl level play from Hamilton. And it says here that they'll get that this season. Honestly, I like it. I mean, when's the last time that we've seen a safety win the MVP? I think maybe Ed Reed maybe won it, but man, it growing up with Troy Polamalu and John Lynch and Ed Reed and those type of guys, I've always had a special place in my heart for safeties, and it just makes sense that the Ravens would have one of the best safeties in the league. It just fits, right? It's the neck with seeing Ed Reed there for so long. Kyle Hamilton just kind of meshes really well with the Ravens. Same thing with the Steelers. And I know as a kid, man, being a safety was like the coolest position you could play because it's like you are the person that is usually the most athletic, the most versatile, right? You can run up and make sacks. You got to be quick. You got to be fearsome. Like you need receivers to think twice before, running right over the middle and taking a hit from a safety. And I mean, the league has changed. There's no people hitting like Palomalu and Ed Reed and John Lynch anymore, not without getting some kind of fine. But I just I think it would be good for the game to have a safety somehow get the MVP award. It would feel very nostalgic for a lot of people. All right, the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs. There seems to have been something going on with Diggs and the Bills that's hard to characterize, but impossible to ignore. Reflected most recently by a brief and slightly mysterious absence from minicamp. And that wasn't the first instance of potential discord. Either Diggs' frustration with the team boiled over during a 17-point home playoff loss to the Bengals. Regardless, if the Bills are going to break their Super Bowl drought, it's almost certainly going to happen with Diggs and Josh Allen making sweet music together. And if Diggs is on board, that's possible. With pass rusher Von Miller coming off an ACL tear, Diggs is by far the clearest non-QB candidate on the roster. It's a bit simplistic to say that the Bills are a Super Bowl contender with Diggs and not a Super Bowl contender without Diggs, but that's where I'm at. By definition, those are team MVP caliber credentials. That's a very good point. If you have a player that if you take him off that team, you believe that team could not win a Super Bowl, you put him on the team and they have a chance at the Super Bowl, by definition, like you are an MVP. You know what I mean? You're the most valuable player. You're the player that no, that could get into an interesting debate because like the Rams, was Von Miller the best player on that team with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and on offense, what they had with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, we just talked about him. I would say no, Von Miller wasn't the best player on that team, but I don't believe the Rams win the Super Bowl without him. So, to just say if a player is on your team and off your team, you might just be the the straw that broke the camel's back. Like you might just be the that's what they did. I mean, that's what the Dolphins did with Bradley Chubb last year. Like you're looking for that one player that kind of just takes it over the top. Like, okay, now we're cooking with bacon grease, right? So I don't know, just to push back a little bit against what he's saying. Now, who wrote this article actually? This is Eric Edholm. Eric Edholm. Never heard of him. The Bengals. Now, you could probably guess who the Bengals pick is. Ja'Marr Chase. I consider defensive end Trey Hendrickson and a very realistic option here. In the end, though, Chase is an elite difference maker. It's true that the Bengals went 3-1 without Chase last season, but those games came against 4 non-playoff teams. In the NFL modern era, only 2 receivers, Odell Beckham Jr. and Justin Jefferson, have averaged more receiving yards per game in their first 29 contests than Chase's 86.2 over the past 2 seasons. Chase has accounted for 4 more touchdown catches than Jefferson, despite appearing in 5 fewer games in that span. Very interesting. Wow. The Bengals' AFC North opponents arguably are worse at cornerback now than they've been the last 2 seasons. And it's possible Cincinnati's offense is even more pass dependent in 2023 as it has been. Depending on how the team feels about the future of Joe Mixon and the other running backs, Joe Burrow could lean on Chase to an even greater degree than he has so far. And this is actually a good talking point right now, because when we see Saquon Barkley not getting a deal, when we see Josh Jacobs not getting a deal, Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been signed, Dalvin Cook is out there, like, we're seeing very good running backs not get paid. And it makes me wonder, how much do teams value a running game, right? Well, you may value the running game, but not one running back. And I'll give you a great example. Sean Payton, he's always been really good at having a running game. Alvin Kamara, there's a long list of running backs, not like star running backs. Alvin Kamara will be the biggest star, but a lot of like Deuce McAllister, like a lot of just like RB2s. Like, he was notorious for having like 3 different RB2s, just keeping fresh legs in all the time. Just a bunch of Mark Ingram type guys. But the NFL, to say that, like, because why didn't, Dalvin Cook's available? Why didn't Sean Payton go get Dalvin Cook, right? So I think you can value having a running game, but maybe you value um, having, let's say, 3 different running backs that are making $3 million a year, right? So now you're paying $9 million for 3 different running backs, then paying $9 million for one running back. I think that is kind of the shift that's happening. I don't think it's that they don't care about the running game. I just think that they're finding a cheaper way where you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Should one of the $3 million running backs get injured, you still have 2 more. So, but it will be interesting to see, like, so if the NFL is valuing that, right? If the best coaches are valuing that, like, you don't see Bill Belichick, getting a star running back. Sean McVay's a great coach. You see that they got, Cam Akers, who's young, but like the teams that pay their running back, like the Giants did, you saw the Cowboys did, and they just, released him just to get out of that deal. So, what is going to happen to our star running backs? It's a valid question, right? And you could say, well, the best running backs will always have a job. That's just the way it is. Like, the Derrick Henrys will always have a job, right? The Joe Mixons might get screwed, the Austin Eckler's, but the top 3 running backs in the league will always have a home. Well, that's what I always thought too. But why is Saquon Barkley not paid? The leading rusher last year's not paid. So it is weird, because they have to have some sort of value, right? I mean, if you're the best in the world at your position and teams just don't value paying, big money for a running back, like, do you just take like a RB2 salary? So, I mean, it's weird. Like, the supply and the demand isn't really like making sense right now. So we're just going to have to wait and see how this unfolds. It almost feels like all the NFL owners, like, they're all in it together, because it seems like, why wouldn't one team just be like, you know what? Like, Dalvin Cook's a pretty good running back. Like, he's top 3 running back in the league, arguably. How is he still available? Like, I thought when he got released from the Vikings, I was like, he'll have a new home in a week tops. And he's still not, in a home. And not only that, we're not even hearing like status updates, on the situation. It's like our team's calling. Like, I would love to know what the hell's going on with these running backs. It's just crickets. Um, so they're basically saying here that the Bengals, with the future of Joe Mixon and their other running backs a little uncertain, that the Bengals will have to lean on the pass even more so in previous years this year. So that's why they picked Jamar Chase. Who is the second youngest player that has been picked so far? Kyle Hamilton is in year 2. All right. Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. Now, it's pretty hard to go elsewhere as Garrett is one of the league's most impactful defenders and one of the Browns' most indispensable players. They need Garrett and Deshaun Watson to dominate this season, period. I believe the team has a chance to do very well with both operating at peak form. The dirty little secret is that while Garrett has had dominant streak since Cleveland selected him first overall in the 2017 NFL Draft, he's never truly had that one transcendent season. I don't know. I think he did when Madden put him in the 99 club, right? 99 overall. I think that was 2 years ago. So the Mason Rudolph incident, a COVID-19 in 2020, a late season injury in 2021, a car crash last season. Over the past 2 seasons, he set and then tied a single season high with 16 sacks, good for third place in the leaderboard in 2021 and second in 22. At least the dislocated toe he suffered at the Pro Bowl games in February seems to already be in the rear view. I didn't even know he dislocated his toe at the Pro Bowl. They're playing flag football, and that's how you know when you're getting old. When you go out and play some flag football and you dislocate a toe. But he's not old. He's only 27 years old. And assuming the bad breaks are all behind him at this point, Garrett could be poised for consistent greatness from here on out. With Jim Schwartz being installed as the Browns defensive coordinator this offseason, and with Za'Darius Smith, Delvin Tomlinson, and Okoronkwo, I probably butchered that name, I'm sorry, being added up front, Garrett could put himself back in the DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year discussion. Denver Broncos. And now here we go. We got a young guy here, year 3. I'll give you a hint. Who would it be? We got Bill in the chat, by the way. What's going on, Bill? Happy to have you in here. Hope you had a good 4th of July. Cheers. That guy right there, number 2, in the background, Patrick Surtain. Cornerback is a valuable position, no doubt, but is a team MVP type spot? Is it a team MVP type spot? In Surtain's case, we say yes. Somehow he seems to be underrated. Yes, and I agree with this. I know why though. It's because when you're not winning, you're just not going to be compared to the best. And it's unfortunate because he has been like the gold standard of what you want a cornerback to be like. When he got drafted from Alabama, Von Miller was like, I've never seen a player come into the NFL as polished as Patrick Surtain did. That is high praise coming from a guy with Von Miller's, type success. So somehow he seems to be underrated despite following a terrific rookie season, 4 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown with 14 passes defended, with an even better 2022 effort, earning Pro Bowl and first-team Pro Bowl honors, while being the son of a darn good NFL player. It doesn't make sense, even if the Broncos have been pretty poor the last 2 seasons. And you can run the tape. Me and Rick did the NFL's top 100, and we asked each other, like, who's the one player that will make the biggest jump in the top 100? And I said Patrick Surtain. And that was like a softball. You know what I mean? Because he was not even in the top 100. I couldn't believe it. You guys, like, when I say, like, it was literally like disgusting. I was like, oh my God, this is so dumb that he wasn't in the top 100. Well, this year he's going to be in the top 25, in my opinion, at least top 30. And that's what I predicted last year. The arrival of Sean Payton will help. He will uh, he will help this team have more wins guaranteed. The TV schedulers seem to agree. They tabbed Denver for 4 primetime slots this season. And all this will put a bigger spotlight on just how good Surtain is. He could earn more elite QB assignments. The new coaching staff has even tinkered with using Surtain as a punt returner, and that is true. I can confirm that. It appears they have big plans for him this season, and it's easy to see why. Now, I think with the punt return stuff, it was just about having, a backup. If your punt returner goes out there and, he gets hurt, it's nice to have a plan, right? And maybe he even saw Surtain, 4 picks. It's a lot of opportunities to see how he is as a ball carrier. And in his rookie year, he returned 1 to the house. If I remember correctly, it was pretty much just a straight shot. But this could be, this could be like our emergency punt returner. But I definitely, Surtain's just, he is very, he brings all the certainty. Like you don't have to worry about an entire side of the field. And if you haven't had a cornerback like that, it is so, so nice. I mean, Denver's had a lot of really good corners. The no-fly zone with Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr., the Champ Bailey years. It feels like this is our first, like, homebred corner because Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr. he was actually an undrafted free agent. And he has a crazy successful story going from undrafted to a Pro Bowler. But once he got traded to the Chargers, or the Chargers picked him up, like, I don't know, he kind of just, he didn't have that same like Champ Bailey feeling. So Surtain is probably going to end up getting his jersey retired one day, I think. And the Houston Texans. This is an interesting pick, and this would never happen, I don't think. But they went with Laremy Tunsil, and now I think this is the same guy that is actually working in the front office of the team. Like, he basically gave himself a 3-year extension. So the Texans made sure not to ship him out, inking him to a 3-year, $75 million extension. Tunsil is expected to play a very important role for the Texans for this rebuilt offense. Second overall pick, C.J. Stroud was afforded strong pass protection on the edges, most of the time at Ohio State, operating in a timing-based passing game while making him comfortable in the NFL. Whenever he wins the starting quarterback job, will be key in the system as well. The Texans have labored to get the O-line right for years now, and Tunsil also must serve another important role, mentoring left guard Kenyon Green, who is coming off a challenging rookie season. If Tunsil can keep blocking at a high level, keep Stroud and the QBs clean, and help advance Green's progression, he could be the most valuable player on the Houston roster. Man, that's actually, I don't really have a problem with any of that. That actually all makes perfect sense. Indianapolis Colts, shout out Jinja. This is Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor is only in year 4. He's going into year 4. So, man, this was really, what was he, the number 1 leading rusher 2 seasons ago? And then last year was just an abysmal. So I feel like we forget about Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor, like, he was the best running back in the league 2 years ago. So let's not forget about Jonathan Taylor. And clearly the writers of this didn't. There are cases to be made for DeForest Buckner on defense, or possibly Quentin Nelson on offense. But Taylor is arguably one of the best 2 to 3 running backs in football, and his value to the Colts was made clear in 2022 when a week 4 ankle injury helped start the ball rolling on a nightmare season. With Indy expected to make a major change at quarterback, having such a typically reliable playmaker in the backfield seems critical. The number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson, has all the physical tools to be a great QB in time, but there are holes in his game. And if opponents need to worry about Taylor as a run threat, as well as his improved skill as a pass catcher, that will theoretically make Richardson's life easier whenever he's inserted into the lineup. Taylor appears poised for a bounce back season. The Colts' ability to play at a respectable level, once again, might hinge on Taylor following through. And look, it's a lot of pressure, but the best in the league handle it well. And I think predicting Jonathan Taylor to have a bounce back year is not very risky, right? I would say it would be a gamble to say he's going to have another bad year. That to me is a gamble, right? This is just a quick speed bump in a long, successful career. All right. In my opinion, we saw too much of him, and we know that he has greatness in him. The Jacksonville Jaguars went with a defensive player, Josh Allen. And they said, I really did ponder Calvin Ridley here. We might end up looking back at that trade deadline acquisition of the veteran receiver as one of the savvier moves general manager Trent Balk has pulled off recently. But for a team whose biggest question lies on defense, Allen might end up being the better choice for this piece. Would the Jaguars be contenders without Allen? I don't think that's an outrageous question. They didn't really upgrade the pass rush this offseason. Specifically, although the continued development of 2022 number 1 overall pick Trayvon Walker certainly is expected, that might make Allen even more valuable to the defense than impressive young cornerback Tyson Campbell. Allen is a better player than his 7-sack season might suggest. Look at the tape, and you see a top-tier edge rusher with a nearly complete game all around. He supplied 4 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 for a touchdown, 22 QB hits, 11 tackles for a loss. If the Jaguars are to be true postseason players, they will need him to put up his finest season yet. And yeah, I mean, the 2023, they had Adam Rank go through every game, and it's like win, loss, and I thought it was really interesting. By week 10, by week 11, they had Jacksonville being 6-4. I just don't see it, man. I don't see how they could be 6-4 at that point. But that's a whole another piece. The Kansas City Chiefs, 14-3 in 2022. So it's become kind of the standard, and the one guy that you think of when you think of Mahomes is Travis Kelce, and that's who they got here. There aren't many bigger Chris Jones fans out there than myself, but let's be honest. Kelce is arguably the best tight end in NFL history, and he's arguably coming off one of his best 2 or 3 seasons. He's the team's MVP, and anything that makes Patrick Mahomes better also makes the Chiefs the most challenging offense to slow down. As he's approaching age 34, perhaps Kelce will do the heavy lifting he once did. Or perhaps Kelce will cease to do the heavy lifting he once did. But no one is expecting him to suddenly become an afterthought in this offense. There's a chance we could see Kadarius Toney evolve into a borderline wide receiver 1 this season, but Kelce remains Mahomes' meal ticket more often than not. Consider, in Kelce's last 9 playoff games over the past 3 seasons, he has 81 catches on 98 targets. That is crazy. 81 catches on 98 targets. It's like every time he's targeted, it's a catch. For 916 yards and 10 touchdowns, along with a TD pass. In big moments, there are few better in the history of the NFL than Travis Kelce. And man, you just can't argue with that. The Raiders go with Max Crosby. There's absolutely a strong case to be made for either Devontae Adams or Josh Jacobs in this spot. Jacobs arguably was the Raiders' overall MVP last season when you consider how much he did. And with Jimmy Garoppolo already coming in as an injury risk at quarterback, Jacobs figures to be plenty busy again. But Crosby is special too. And the Raiders have more questions on the defensive side of the ball again. He's not good enough to clean up everyone else's mistakes, but that won't stop him from trying. There aren't 10 players in the league who play with a hotter motor, and arguably not that many who make more of an impact on their defense. Chandler Jones fell off significantly last season, especially early on. And 2023 first rounder Tyree Wilson might come in a bit behind, given that he has not yet practiced while continuing to rehab from a foot surgery. That puts an enormous burden on Crosby, but he's been up to the challenge almost since the day he stepped foot on an NFL field. And then going with another offensive tackle, keeping it in the AFC West, the Chargers with Rashawn Slater. It's pretty hard to go against pass rusher Joey Bosa here, but Slater returning to health after missing most of 2022 with a torn bicep could be huge for Justin Herbert in the passing game. Jameer Saylor, who did yeoman's work in Slater's left tackle spot last season, is now expected to shift to right guard. With plenty of assets allocated to the offensive line the past few years, the Chargers could be in the best blocking shape they've been in since Herbert arrived. Could Herbert be a league MVP candidate? I'm not at all ruling that one out. If that comes to pass, there's an excellent chance it means Slater has returned to his brilliant rookie season form. The Miami Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey. And real quick, I do think that Jalen Ramsey, like we talked about with Patrick Surtain, I think Jalen Ramsey, by week 6, week 7, the Rams knew what kind of year it was. And I just felt like Jalen Ramsey just kind of mentally checked out, right? And I think this change to Miami with Vic Fangio, I do think you're going to see Jalen Ramsey back in form. Like all this talk about, who's the best cornerback in the league? Is it Sauce Gardner? People putting Sauce Gardner above Jalen Ramsey, chill out. Jalen Ramsey is going to remind everybody he's the best corner in the league, and it's just because he's been doing this for, you have to give credit where credit's due for sustained success, right? I'm not going to put a rookie above somebody that for 7 years straight was the unquestioned best corner in the league because he had one bad year. So I do think he's going to have a big bounce back year, and I like that he's on this list. Tyreek Hill would have been an easy choice, but his recent off-the-field issue does complicate the matter. We'll pivot instead to Ramsey, the team's marquee addition this offseason. There's actually some question of whether Ramsey remains an elite corner, and he's coming off his shoulder surgery, but he could be exactly what they need. Miami had only 8 interceptions that allowed the second most receptions in the league last season. The Dolphins' pass rush has promise, but more was needed to slow down opposing passers. That becomes especially important in the light of the slew of talented quarterbacks dotting their schedule this season. Ramsey believes he and Xavier Howard are the best cornerback duo. And Kader Kua is a promising third option. If the players buy in on Vic Fangio's vision and absorb the complex scheme, this defense can take a step up this season. And I talked about the Dolphins being probably one of the only teams that have a top 5 and a top 5 or defense and offense. I think the Bills were a top 5 offense and defense for most of last season, if not the entire thing. And then just two teams to cover left. We got Matt Judon, outside linebacker, New England Patriots. Just skip that one. New York Jets. And Quentin Williams, defensive tackle, year 5. Message for the Sauce Gardner fan club. Yes, we love your boy. It's just that year 2 might not be quite as smooth as Gardner's defensive rookie of the year campaign was. As receivers and referees adjust to him. Yeah, especially referees. Man, that dude got away with so many pass interferences. Like, so many. I love the dude's hustle. Like, if you're not getting called, like, whatever, that's on the refs. But if you run the tape, like, they're literally, like, just blown calls all the time. And I remember seeing last year, there was, man, was that last? Yeah, that was last year. And I think it was on Cortland Sutton. But there was, like, video of him, like, pushing Sutton, and the ball's not even there yet. And it's like, didn't get called. If Williams, who is set to play in the 5th-year option in 23, doesn't receive a contract extension prior to the start of the season, the price tag for the Jets might go up. He doubled his sack production last season, 12 from 2021 to he had 6 sacks in 2021, so he had 12 last season. And he doubled his QB hits, 28 from the year before, 12. What's most impressive is how Williams did that last season without a ton around him. The Jets have added more bodies inside this year, and they've spent a first-round pick on pass rusher Will McDonald. In theory, that should help free Williams up even more, with or without a new deal. The Steelers got to go with TJ Watt, year 7. The Steelers were 9-8 last season. Could the Steelers make it to an AFC championship this year? We're going to talk about that soon on another episode. I love Cameron Hayward, but Watt is the no-brainer choice. The Steelers found how tough it is to win without Watt when he got hurt week 1 last season. Yeah, man, Watt was insane in that week 1 matchup too. With Watt in the lineup, Pittsburgh went 8-2, allowing 20 or fewer points in 9 of those 10 games. Without Watt from week 2 to 8, the Steelers went 1-6, got rolled by the Bills and the Eagles, and allowed 29 points to the Jacoby Brissett-led Browns. There aren't many more impactful defenders in the league than Watt, who has 6 interceptions, 77.5 sacks, and an absurd 23 forced fumbles in 87 career games. That is insane. That is insane. He's for every 4 games he's played, he forces a fumble. The Steelers should be improved offensively, but the path to success this offseason almost certainly includes collecting their share of narrow wins. Watt always seems to make his presence felt multiple times per game, especially in close contests. And the last team here, the Tennessee Titans. Jeffrey Simmons. The Titans are in a strange spot as a team right now, hanging on to past pillars such as Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, while also starting to refresh other elements on the roster. But one other team strength lies on the defensive end, and it's a good enough crew to keep Tennessee competitive in the AFC South, which has something of a mixed bag of offensive line talent. This group is led by Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons, and arguably one of the 2 or 3 best at his position. He wasn't quite as impactful in 2022 as he was in 21, fading a bit down the stretch as he was slowed down by knee and ankle injuries. The Titans also lost a little bit of their depth via the departures of DeMarcus Walker and Mario Edwards. DeMarcus Walker actually was drafted by the Broncos, and he went to Florida State. I wonder where DeMarcus Walker went. Let's find out really quick. DeMarcus Walker, oh yeah, he went to the Chicago Bears. That's a good pickup right there. I'm a fan of DeMarcus Walker. I think he is about to have that year where people are going to know who he is. Um, just a late bloomer, but the guy's got some ball in him. So Tennessee going with defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons as their team MVP. With Simmons, Autry, and Tart comprise a truly underrated trio inside. And while the Titans didn't spend a single draft pick to help the defense, a healthy Harold Landry returning outside certainly will help Simmons and that group. And this was written by Eric Edholm, and you can follow him on Twitter. That is an NFL lead draft writer, actually. So, uh, I love that, man. I love going through and seeing like who they decide like who is the most important player on their team aside from the quarterbacks. The one player that if you take him off the team, will make the biggest difference. And I think they did a good job. That was a pretty good list. And we're gonna do the NFC on a next episode. So I did want to mention this. This will probably make Rick really happy. Bears rookie wide receiver Tyler Scott has been studying DJ Moore, and he said he's everything advertised and more. No pun intended. DJ Moore, obviously being a teammate, he's everything advertised and more. And that is really good news, right? For Bears fans around the world. When asked which route runners he studied to help his own game, like he plays with such a calmness to him, just the control to him. And football players know, kind of what it looks like. And he just kind of plays just under control. Poise. He's poised. He's calm. He's confident. He knows what he's doing out there. Um, so good thing, man, because Chicago really needed that wide receiver one. And it took a while, but, it's nice that they got that now. And they did, what is this, 7-round NFL mock draft. Round 1, building a win now team from active players. Oh, so like if the NFL drafted with active players, they got the Bears drafting Patrick Mahomes number 1. Texans get Joe Burrow. The Cardinals get Josh Allen. The Colts got Jalen Hurts. The Broncos got Aaron Rodgers. Hell no. He's like got 1 year left. In no way would he be drafted there. We'll get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields or Deshaun Watson. But my favorite thing to do is not drafting active players. I don't know if you've ever seen, but they will actually do a redraft once we know like how the players are. Usually it takes a couple years, but then you'll do like 2017 redraft, right? And you're like, okay, Mahomes is going number 1 overall, obviously, and those are really fun, and it's cool to see like where they actually get drafted at. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. I saw that my camera just shit the bed. So let me get out of here. I'm going to see this comment really quick. Bill said, just saw a video about the Broncos only starting 10 men in the first play after Demaryius pass. It was 2021, but new to me. You got a good team. Good. Got a delay penalty in the Lions decline class. Yeah, that was an emotional game. That I cried like that whole entire thing. And they had Courtland Sutton. So now that you know about this, Bill, you might notice that on my Twitter profile, my background picture is actually Courtland Sutton standing in the Demaryius Thomas 88 on the field. But I'm really glad you got to see that story, man. One of the best, moments as a Bronco fan. I mean, it's a sad moment, but just really powerful. But I will see you guys tomorrow. That's all I got for today. Tomorrow's going to be a really fun episode. I don't want to spoil anything. I do got some news to share with you guys. I was actually insanely busy this week. I planned on going live yesterday. I wanted to go live on Monday, and I'm going through a major life change. It's all good for the podcast. It's all good for the show and content and gathering and stuff like that. But it has been a lot. So it'll all make sense in due time, and I'll be sharing that with you guys shortly. Bill says, "Have a good one," on behalf of himself and on behalf of me and Rick and everyone else. I hope you guys have a great night and enjoy yourself. Until then, go Broncos. See ya.